Hello everybody, it's me, WalterTheGermanyBall, back with the midway point of this season of Console Conversations, episode 10, and today I'm very excited to be doing a video with none other than PaNiC, who's been on before during the season 3 holiday special episode. So I'm very happy to welcome her back onto Console Conversations finally. And today we're going to be talking about our favorite video game characters, and then we're going to be talking about times that we've cried while playing games, and ended off with discussing which is better, the Batman Arkham games or the Insomniac Spider-Man games. So this is going to be very interesting, and so I think we can start off with the characters. So if you'd like to go ahead with one of your favorite video game characters of all time to start us off.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with maybe not necessarily a controversial choice, but maybe one that most people wouldn't necessarily expect. I'm actually going to go with a boss, specifically from Dark Souls 3. It's my favorite boss fight in the entire Souls series, and it's going to be Slave Knight Gale. Now, the main reason why I love Slave Knight Gale, outside of the fact that he is, again, my favorite boss fight, is more so the lore surrounding him. So he's actually a character you meet earlier on in the game who offers to help you, and you can even summon him to help you fight in other boss fights. But once you reach the very end of the game, it turns out that Slave Knight Gale legitimately spent all of time fighting and killing everyone, literally everyone other than you, in an attempt to get the Dark Soul, which is the same thing that your character is after. So by all these crazy means, you get to the very end of the world, you basically go to the end of time, and the last two people remaining are you and him. And you have this amazing fight where he kind of slowly loses his mind and attacks you in an attempt to finally get that Dark Soul. And that setup of him being so devoted and you know, falling to the madness that every other character inevitably really does in Dark Souls, that setup to me is just really compelling. Especially the fact that he was your companion before and he turns evil. That adds an extra dimension to it, in my opinion. So that's going to be my first one.
Well, I've never played Dark Souls, but I gotta say that that's probably one of the best setups for any boss battle I've ever heard in any video game. And that sounds scary as all hell. And so I'm going to go ahead with one of my favorite characters in any game, which is the Fool from Sayonara Wild Hearts. Now, one thing about it is a lot of people don't actually know that it's called the Fool. I don't think they even say it in the game, but it's basically the main character of Sayonara Wild Hearts. And the main reason is not because she has some incredible design or anything. It's mostly, and this is what you're going to be seeing a lot on my list, it's because the whole game is really centered around her journey. And that's part of why I really love the story of that game, because each level kind of centers around her gradually coming to a different realization about what's going on around her, and by the end you have this very uplifting final level, and it's really a game about self-discovery, and it unfolds in a very interesting way, and you just, at the end, you just want to see her achieve the happiness that she wants to, and she's just a very likable, well-written character, even though the game, like, you know, doesn't have like any cutscenes or anything. Well, it does have cutscenes, but not in the same style of a lot of other games. So like, she doesn't ever talk, she doesn't ever have a text bubble or anything like that, but she's still a very compelling character, and that's really a unique way to make a compelling character. So if you want to go ahead with your next favorite character.
Yeah, sure. So next, I'm going to go with another villain. but this time one that I think is going to be a bit more popular, and that's Joker from Batman Arkham Asylum.
Oh, yeah.
I genuinely really, really like almost all of the Joker stuff in that game. I think he's an excellent villain all around. I mean, just in general, all that stuff. But he's also, specifically in this game, he's like funny. Of course, the amazing Mark Hamill does the voice for him, which adds a whole other dimension to his character. In my opinion, he's the best animated Joker, like by far. I love Mark Hamill's performance.
Mark Hamill's great all around.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Hamill's just amazing. But just a great character all around. He's funny. He's still threatening. His dynamic with Batman is cool. I mean, it's not like the most deep or interesting thing, but it's good for, comic book level writing. The only thing that I really didn't like was that final boss fight where he becomes Titan form. I think that's stupid and terrible and goes against the Joker's character.
In Arkham Asylum?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't like
I don't remember that very much from when I played that game, but I do remember the boss fight at the end of Arkham City, and I don't really want to spoil what happens, but I thought his ending in Arkham City... What?
The game's almost 10 years old. I don't think it matters, honestly.
Okay, that's true. Yeah. So, Joker dying at the end of Arkham City, I was completely shocked. I thought they were going to try to make you sad by having, Catwoman die, and I wouldn't have cared one bit, honestly. But Joker dying caught me legitimately off guard, especially considering the fact that there were 2 other games in the series that I hadn't played, and I thought, for sure, there's no way they killed off Joker, in the second game. No, they kill him, and it's really sad, honestly. It's probably one of the saddest villain deaths I've ever seen. So I agree. He's great. He's great in almost every Batman thing, but especially in those games. I haven't seen the Christopher Nolan, right, Batman movies with
you need to
what's his name? Yeah, I know.
That. You need to see it. It's so good.
Yeah, I'd like to, but I don't know if there's any way to watch it without paying a bunch of money to, rent or buy it. But I don't know. But I've heard that's like the best Joker. But for my personal experiences, the best Joker I've seen is, the one from those games. And so then my next favorite character, and this is actually a pair of characters, so it might be cheating a little bit, but who cares, is Kara / Alice from Detroit Become Human, because it's the best part of the game. Pretty much everyone I've talked to who's also played the game says that Connor is their favorite, but I don't agree. I think for sure Kara is my favorite, and just, it kind of is a guilt trip with how they cook you on the child abuse aspect, and then, you protecting her. But it's just a very nice bond. It's a lot like a certain other game I really like, where you play as someone taking care of a little girl. But it's different, and the way it explores because it has a lot to do with the allegories to racism and civil rights with the androids. And I felt that with Marcus's story, it was explored all right. With Connor's story, it wasn't explored very well. And with Alice / Kara's story, I thought that was a great portrayal of that. And just their relationship really kind of helped a lot of the themes of that game to actually be a little bit more... It made the game feel like it was more focused on those themes. And I just really liked the 2 characters, and I wanted them to be happy in the end, and all that. So now you can go ahead with your next character.
Sure. So my next pick is going to be Emile from Halo Reach. I like Halo Reach. A lot of people they seem to either absolutely love it or like really hate it. I am in the category of really loving it. And even though, the argument can be made that, the characters aren't like super well written or super well fleshed out, which is obvious because, they only had one game. But I still really liked that cast, the Noble Six team, and especially Emile. I find his, like a lot of the lore stuff with him to be really interesting. His attitude towards the Covenant is really interesting. His general, just like, I don't really care about them or their goals. I'm just here to protect people, and if they come anywhere near me, I'm going to kill them. It is a very just interesting take on that, I feel. He almost seems like the more well-written version of Master Chief in a way, because Master Chief was sort of meant to just be a blank slate for the player to impose themselves into. But Emile is an actual character who is similar to Master Chief in many ways, but I think he's more interesting. I also love his helmet. He has like a skull that he etched into the glass of his helmet with his knife, and that's just really cool to me. So yeah, that's Emile.
I have not played Halo Reach, so I can't comment on that personally. But one interesting thing was, which one was it? Oh yes, earlier this season, when we did the favorite games of all time episode, my guest put Halo Reach was on his 10 favorite games list. So I didn't know that there were people who hated that game. But yeah, so that's interesting. So next up, I have on my list Trico. And I can already hear people either saying, who the hell is Trico? And also maybe, if they do know, what the hell's wrong with you? Because a lot of people hate The Last Guardian. And I can recognize kind of why it can be a little hard to get used to. But I thought the story payoff was huge. And we're gonna get to this. Talk about games that made me cry. Yeah, Last Guardian. Last Guardian has Trico, and I could have picked the little boy. But Trico is really the focus of the game, and he's also an adorable little dog creature, so how can I not? But the little boy isn't really that fleshed out. Trico is fleshed out, and it's really about seeing how he grows this bond, kind of like with Kara and Alice before. But I'm going to just say Trico because I think he's a lot more interesting than the little boy. And yeah, I just felt like he was a very likable little creature who I didn't ever want to see hurt, and the ending was very heartbreaking because of how much I liked Trico. So yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. My next pick is also from Halo, but this time from the main series. It's going to be the Arbiter. I love the Arbiter. He's amazing. Genuinely like a funny character, very well written. I think his whole clash with the rest of the elites was really interesting. His exile, how the elites sort of react to that, and the like factions that break off within them because of that decision. Especially during Halo 2 when the elites and the humans create a treaty with each other, They work together against the brutes. I thought that was awesome. Same thing in Halo 3. We still have a truce with the elites. And, the Arbiter is kind of the forefront of that. He's the one who decided to come to the UNSC in the first place. He was willing to be friendly with humans and create that bridge that he knew could exist. And for that, I think he deserves a lot of credit. He's also just sick. He's got that awesome black armor. He runs around and just goes ham with the energy sword all the time. Overall, just really cool, interesting character who implicates a lot in the story and the broader lore in general. And I do hope that we find out that he's okay in Halo Infinite or something, because they sort of just dropped him after Halo 3, and I think that's kind of upsetting. I'd like to see, what he's been up to, or if he's still alive, or, whatever's going on with him.
I hear that they dropped a lot of stuff after Halo 3, but, that's
yeah, 343 did not treat Halo that well.
Yeah.
But, oh well.
So my next pick, I've tried to limit this for my personal list to, and yeah, you didn't, because you have 2 Halo characters. But for me, I have a reason, because I have limited mine to 1 character per franchise, at least as much as I can, because if I didn't, then half of this list would be from a certain game, and I don't want to do that because that's not as interesting. But yeah, so in case you guys might be upset about, like, oh, why is blah 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 not on your list, it's because there's another character from that franchise. So my next character is Finn from Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now, Peter is great, Miles is great, Aunt May is great, MJ is great. All these characters that we know and love from Spider-Man are great. But Finn is something unique that I had never, I'd never heard of her before the game came out. And she's pretty much the reason why I think the story of Miles Morales was so amazing, because her redemption arc, 1, was amazing. 2, well, I don't want to spoil that too much, but the twist involving her in the first third of the game is also great and unexpected. And 3, she's just has a really good, she has a really good character motivation. And in the first Spider-Man game, I love that game, as I said in my review. But Miles Morales truly is more complicated than the original. A lot of the characters, you're like, oh, are they really the bad guy? And Finn is the embodiment of that for me, because she often has the right intentions and goals, but doesn't act out in a proper way. And, some enemies, like the demons from the original game, are also that way, but Finn is completely centered around showing that, and I think it's executed very well. So I just thought she was a very well-written, unique character who really set that game apart from the original. And so,
yeah, I think that's a good point. So I guess I go on with my next one. So this is a character who I think, for those who have played it, I think they will 100% agree with me. But for anyone else, they'll probably be like, this is a fucking terrible pick. It's going to be BT7274 from Titanfall 2, the main robot that you travel around with as Jack Cooper in the single-player campaign. I think this robot is excellent. This is Iron Giant level writing here. This is even better than Iron Giant level writing.
Whoa.
This is next level, getting humans to be attached to a robot writing. I love BT. He's funny, interesting, endearing. He has an amazing character arc. Even though he's a robot, which I didn't even know robots could have character arcs, because they're robots. Well, this is more of the typical robot.
Yeah.
He just follows orders, doesn't really have like a personality installed or anything type robot. But his interactions with Cooper are amazing. That's the main character you play as. I love their growing relationship and how you get to see them kind of evolve over the course of the game. All the times that you go and save him and he comes and saves you, it really establishes that, the relationship between a pilot and their Titan is really strong and important, and that's kind of the thing that's going to turn the tide of the war in the favor of the rebels. I can't remember what they're called, from the IMC. So yeah, I think BT is an excellent example of just a well-written robot character who is turned into sort of the emotional core of the game, even though it's a robot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I have not played much of Titanfall 2, but I have heard people talk about that character and how they think it is like you said, like Iron Giant. A lot of people I've seen compare it to that. Um, and so my next pick is one of the first ones on here. That's not because of the story around the character, because it's a simple character, and his name is Spyro the Dragon. And I mean, I can't, like, come on, you knew I was going to put this on here, because I love Spyro. It's my favorite game ever. And Spyro is just such an adorable little mascot who, in my opinion, like, a lot of people say Crash Bandicoot. No, I disagree. I think Spyro is probably one of, if not the best mascot for PlayStation, at least the more child-friendly side of PlayStation. Because, you know, well, yeah, because you have, like, Nathan Drake and all that for, you know, all the other stuff. But for the child-friendly side of PlayStation, Spyro is perfect. He has a great design. He's purple. He's my favorite color, so come on. He's a cute little dragon. Tom Kenny is his voice actor. He has a ton of different abilities. Like, I mean, there's not much else to say. He's just a great little character who's really iconic and who's from my favorite game ever. Yeah, that's all. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I love Spyro. I think that's a good pick. Okay, so for my next one, I have another set of it's two characters from the same game, but I don't care. So haha. These characters are so good, and they are pretty much like my favorites. So, and they're from one of my favorite games of all time, one of the best written games of all time, if you ask me. My next character is going to be Mettaton from Undertale. I love Mettaton. He is amazing. Every time he's on screen, I get a big dumb smile on my face because I say, "Oh, it's my boy. That's my boy Mettaton." He is hilarious, so well written. His whole arc with trying to be a TV star and using you in his game shows while still being a villain, I think is such an interesting frame through which to show his villainy or to show his goals. Because really, he's not super interested in the fact that you're a human necessarily. It's more so that he uses that as a justification to create all the crazy traps that he has for his game show. So, and if you do the pacifist run, like I always do, because I'm too soft to kill all the characters that I love, he even reveals to you that really his only goal was to entertain people. That's all he really cares about. And I think that's kind of beautiful in a way. We may think that he's this sort of cold, dead, again, robot. There seems to be a lot of robots on my list. But really, he does have a heart. And I think that's awesome. Also, his theme music is amazing. I think he has two of the best songs in the Undertale soundtrack, which is saying a lot because that soundtrack is amazing.
Yeah, I think you definitely have a thing for villains and robots on this list. I thought he was a very funny character, with how he did, like you said, all those traps. That was, I thought, a really funny part of the game. And yeah, I would have to say, well, I don't want to say, but I'm going to have something related to Undertale on the next part of this. But, so my next character, my third favorite, is Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. And one thing about her is she doesn't get a ton, well, she does get a ton of development in that game. And you might think because, she doesn't get enough, but that's why there's a sequel coming out February 18th. Let's go. She is just a very interesting character with how she's written. Specifically, I really, really, really love the whole self-discovery, kind of like what I was talking about with Sayonara Wild Hearts. It's like that, but on steroids with Aloy, as you go all across the world to find out who you really are and where you really came from, and the twist is pretty shocking. And she's just a very well-written character who's very fun to play as with all her different abilities that you unlock through the game. And her interactions with a lot of the other characters are hilarious. She's very funny in a lot of cutscenes. So she's just a very likable, well-written character with a lot of good mystery that leads to some of the best twists and story moments in the whole game. So yeah, you can go ahead with your next one.
Okay. My next one is, again, from Undertale. It's going to be Papyrus. Papyrus is just, yet again, very funny character. I love all of his lines. He's such an oblivious, like, I guess, like, jester or fool type character. You know, he's has all these wild ambitions. He has this overactive imagination. He almost acts like a kid, really. I mean, he literally, his clothes are like a suit that he got for like a Halloween party, and he never took it off. He's just this weird, funny, endearing person who, again, like, starts out like, oh, all obsessed with stopping you. But once you show him that, you know, there's more to life than just being a royal guard or going after humans, he's willing to be open and friendly with you. And he ends up being one of, like, I would say your closest friends, quote unquote, in the game, because he talks to you the most. Like, I'm pretty sure it's like him and Alphys are the two people who talk to you the most throughout the game. So I don't know. I just love him. I think his boss fight is good. It's not like great, but it is good, and it's funny too. There's a lot of like jokes that are gameplay oriented too, not just dialogue. And I think his arc is also great as well. You know, giving him the confidence to be himself and continue putting an effort to things that he cares about, regardless of how disheveled or downtrodden he may feel.
Yeah. I do think he's, like, a lot of people always talk about Sans, you know, but I always thought, you know, Papyrus was more interesting than Sans was in that game.
Sans becomes more interesting if you do the genocide run, but only in the sense that he starts to just kind of comment on the genocide run itself. So I think you're right. I don't necessarily agree that Sans is more interesting. I think what he does for the game is more interesting, but as a character, Papyrus is definitely better.
I've only done the normal run, so I wouldn't know. So next up, my second favorite video game character of all time is Abby Anderson from The Last of Us Part 2. And, you know, I've talked about this for quite some time in my review, so I'm not going to waste everybody's time by talking about it a lot more. Basically, just good character, good writing, yeah. So, the thing is, a lot of people compare her to Joel, and that's proper, and I think that's true, and she is very similar to Joel, who is also a very good character, but I didn't put him on this list because of my one per franchise rule. And she is similar, but she's also very, very different, because she kind of goes... well, actually, I don't know. She is different because she doesn't do the horrible deed. She doesn't take the bad path when she's given her final choice like Jill did. And I think Ellie's a great character, Joel's a great character, but Abby and Lev are, in my, like, 10 times better than Ellie and Joel. The bond between them is fantastic, and all of the stuff between the WLF and the Seraphites is incredibly morally complicated. It's probably some of the best writing I've seen in a video game between those two factions, and how these two characters are originally meant to just go out in the battlefield and kill each other, but they realize how wrong that really is, and as you go through this insanity. Her storyline is just insane. Ellie's is a little more calm. Abby's is pure insanity through the whole thing, and she has some really challenging gameplay, and her friends are really interesting, and she's really funny, just like Aloy and Spyro is. So, yeah, just good character, and I don't really need to say anymore because I talked about it forever in my review. So you can go with your next one.
Okay. So this is probably my favorite video game character. It's hard to say because there are some characters I like just because they're from games that I like. They're not necessarily like super well written, but I just have an attachment to them. But I would say that this character is probably like my favorite character, just as far as how they're written and all that kind of stuff. So my number one pick is going to be Ike from Fire Emblem. Now, let me go through all the reasons why Ike is amazing, so that nobody in the comments, nor even you, Walter the Germany Ball, can disagree with my pick. Ike is cute, very strong, super valiant and courageous, kind, anti-racist during the Middle Ages, creates factions,
Whoa.
and
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Anti-racist? So
he's anti-racist.
Fire Emblem. So are you saying that Fire Emblem is an SJW game? Is that what you're saying to me right now? How dare Nintendo make
it's SJU cucked, whatever, yeah.
Alright, continue.
Yeah, but yes, Ike is anti-racist. He has a sword that is blessed by the gods. He basically controls fire. That's what eruption is. He just creates this giant blue thing of fire, and it kills everything. And he is just cool. He's epic and poggers, and he's in Smash. So there you go.
Well, I was never going to try to disprove that, because I've never played Fire Emblem, so, you know, I can't really say much about that. But if you want to like an SJW character, I mean, I like Abby, and, you know, so we all have our flaws, 0 out of 10, you know, worst game ever. Alright, so now my favorite character of all time is Link from the Legend of Zelda series. And it's because, come on, like, other than Mario, who is the most, one of the most iconic video game characters of all time. He has a lot of different versions, there's not just one Link. And have you seen the CDI cutscenes? Probably some of the best character writing I have ever seen in those cutscenes. You know, he just has the best voice actor possibly ever. And in those games, you know, so many memorable lines that really stick out to me, like, I'm so hungry I could eat a Dodongo. So, Link is just iconic. He's got the best writing in the whole series because of those cutscenes. And, yeah, if they were going to make an anime or a show of any kind like they did in the 80s, I'd for sure want him to talk, because I think he has so much to say. No, but in all seriousness, Link is a very iconic character, and he is in Breath of the Wild, which is my second favorite game ever. So, yeah. That's my favorite. Alright, so now you can go ahead if you have any more.
I think I'm done, unless you want me to add one more.
If you want to talk about them, then you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'll add one quick one. Sekiro from Sekiro. He's sort of the only like real main character from a Souls game, because in all the other ones it's your own character that you created. And I just think he's really cool. You know, all the feats that he accomplishes, and the fact that he's so devoted to protecting the divine heir, I think, is really cool. He's nice and endearing as well. There's some lines of dialogue, if you talk to the right people and do the right things, that, you know, he kind of shows his softer side. And I think that's nice, you know, just good characterization overall.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, what's cooler than, you know, stabbing people in the throat with a samurai sword? Like, nothing. So,
Yeah, probably not much that I can think of. Okay, well, now let's get to our second topic.